Please be seated. The court is now in session. Today, the chamber hears testimony of a witness through TCW 971 via video link from Udon Minjay province in relation to security centers and internal purchase. And before we proceed, the chamber wishes to inform parties to the case that for today's proceedings, Judge Yutra, who is a national judge, is absent for some urgent matters, so that he cannot attend the proceedings today. And after the judge's bench deliberated the matter, Judge Tomene is appointed to replace the Judge Yutra. And that decision is based on Rule 79.4 of the ECCC internal rules. Ms. Jia Su-Huang, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals to today's proceedings. Grazie, Mr. President. For today's proceedings, all parties to this case are present, except Kong Som-on, National Counsel for Keo Sampon, who informs the chamber that he is absent today for personal reasons. Mr. Nguyen Chi is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his rights to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. The witness who is to testify today, namely to TCW 971, confirms that through his best knowledge, he has no relationship by blood or by law to any other two accused, that is Nguyen Chi and Keo Sampon, or to any other civil parties admitted in this case. The witness took an oath this morning, and the witness will testify by a video link from Udon Minjay province, and he has Mr. Muang Sawan as his duty counsel, and he is ready to testify. The AV unit also informs that the video link has been established. President, thank you, Ms. Jia Su-Huang. The chamber now decides on the request by Nguyen Chi. The chamber has received a waiver from Nguyen Chi dated 9 December 2016, which states that due to his health, that is headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his rights to be present at the 9 December 2016 hearing. Having seen the medical report of Nguyen Chi by the duty doctor for the accused at the ECCC, dated 9 December 2016, which notes that today Nguyen Chi has a lower back pain when he sits for long, and recommends that the chamber shall grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the chamber grants Nguyen Chi his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via an audio-visual means. The chamber instructs the AV unit personnel to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Nguyen Chi can follow. That applies for the whole day. And today, before we proceed to hear testimony of TCW 971, the chamber wishes to hear oral submissions from parties in relation to two issues. First, the request by Keo Sampon's defense, pursuant to Rule 87.4, to admit into evidence document E319/43.3.7, which is a WRI of an individual in relation to witness through TCW 823. And the second issue is the Rule 87.4 request in relation to documents obtained from Professor Henowski. And before we begin to hear oral submissions on these two, we first hear it on the first issue. The Chamber was notified by Defense Counsel for Keo Sampon by email on 7 December 2016 that they wish to request for the admission of document E319/43.3.7, which is a WRI of an individual as evidence. And the Chamber wishes to hear opinions from other parties regarding this request. First, the floor is given to the defense team for Keo Sampon to make their oral request. You have the floor.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Good morning to everyone. This is a very brief request that I am submitting today. In fact, the Chamber very recently decided to summons a witness to TCW 823, who was a member of Division 164. And in the context of our initial preparation for this witness, our attention was drawn to a WRI E319/43.3.7, which came from either case 3 or 4. I'm not sure which one. He was the head of a company within Division 164. And during the testimony, it showed that he had very close ties to TCW 823, and there were very close links also to TCW 1000, who has already appeared before this chamber, and they were even very close ties. And so we're asking for the WR of this witness, 823, who was in the same regiment as to TCW 1000. The WR that we are asking today was transmitted to us after the appearance of TCW 1000, and that is why, and that was communicated to us by the co-prosecutors at that time, and that's why it didn't come to our attention until we were preparing for TCW 823. So we are now making a Rule 87.4 request, and we believe that this is therefore timely and in proper form. We would just like to have the document relating to someone who had a position of authority in Division 164, so that we can look at the treatment of the Vietnamese. That's very briefly my request, Mr. President.
Thank you. The Chamber now hands the floor to the co-counsel for Noon Chia to respond or to observe the request made by the defense team for Keo Sampon.
We have no observations, Mr. President.
Thank you. I now hand the floor to the co-prosecutors to respond or to make a remark to this request.
Mr. President, we have no objection to admission of that document.
And the lead co-lawyers for civil parties, Mr. President, we rely on the wisdom and the discretion of the bench. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président, puisque...
Mr. President, since the floor has been given to me, and since we are raising the issue of 2 TCW 823, I would like to raise a technical question I don't think it's a Rule 87.4 request in and of itself. I'll explain. In the case file, we have two WRIs of 2 TCW 823 who will be coming on Tuesday. So we have one statement E3/9817 to the OCIJ, and there's also a DC Cam interview, document E3/9069. In preparing for this witness, we realized that in the context of his WRI from the OCIJ interview, the witness made a certain number of comments to his DCCAM interview, and as an annex to this document, there were annotations and notes made by the investigator to the DCCAM document. And so when we look at the annex, E3, the annex to E3917, we don't have the reference as usual E3/9817.1 that we would normally have. We simply have the former number that came from the other investigation, and I would therefore like to be sure that in the context of the discussion with this witness, we will be able to clearly raise issues in this annex, and the most simple way that the Chamber could handle this would be by giving it a reference number E3/9817.1 because it's an annex to this WRI, which made comments on the DC CAM document. So it's just a technical issue, but I just want to be certain that when we're raising questions, we will be able to know that both documents are connected, since it's an annex to the OCIJ document. So it's just a technical issue that I wanted to raise, and I would also like to inform the Chamber and the parties that we noted that there were several translation problems, and so there is a request underway for correction of the translation of this DCCAM document. I think it will be done by Monday, but I will keep the Chamber and the parties informed.
Judge Laverne, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Guisset. Just for this information, the Chamber is aware of this challenge, and I think that there will be a solution very quickly to solve this issue.
Thank you. Let me now move to the second item. It is related to Rule 87.4 request concerning documents obtained from Professor Henowski. The Chamber recalled its decision issued on the 21st of September 2016, in which the Chamber notes that the Chamber obtained information from Professor Henowski concerning his knowledge on the relevant documents in lieu of his testimony. Please refer to document E446. After the Chamber contacted Professor Henowski from 13 September 2016, requesting information as to a logbook and any other documents that were depicted in the film Die on Car, which was produced by Professor Henowski. Document E443/2, paragraph 2. Then on 7 November 2016, Professor Henowski informed the Chamber that he had found some documents, namely 1, an SA1 logbook concerning a time period in 1977, which weighs 2 kilograms and is well preserved. 2, photos of detainees. And 3, translations of confessions made by a Cambodian living in Germany who had accompanied his filming crew. He also reiterated his request that the documents be provided to the Tuoslan Museum after the trial. The Chamber replies to the professor that only items 1 and 2 would be requested. Please refer to E443/2, paragraph 5. On 2nd December 2016, the Chamber received documents from Professor Henowski, including one, an arranged logbook with about 246 pages containing entries, and 2, several loose pages in German and Khmer, which are badly deteriorated. No photos were received. Document E443/2, paragraph 6. In a cover letter, Professor Henowski describes the 5 categories of documents that he included in the package of loose pages and sets forth the contact details of the interpreter involved in producing the German translations of the Khmer documents, reiterating his wish that the documents should be donated to the Tuoslan Museum. The letter and its translation into English will be placed on the shared materials drive. E443/2, paragraph 7. And at present, the Records and Archives Unit is scanning the arranged logbook and will be placed on the shared material drive. The loose pages are of such poor quality that they cannot be scanned by the eye review without risking further damage. Therefore, the Chamber has asked the Director of the Tuoslan Museum to determine whether the documents can be preserved and scanned, and if so, how much time will be necessary to achieve this task. Document E443/2, paragraph 8. And due to the importance and relevant natures of these documents in case 002/02, the Chamber wishes to hear oral submissions from parties whether they wish to request for these documents pursuant to Rule 87.4. First, the Chamber hands the floor to the co-prosecutors to make their submission on their request or to make observations in relation to these documents. Do you have the floor?
Thank you, Mr. President. In regards to the logbook that has been put on the drive, we believe it's very relevant. It appears to indicate the numbers of individuals arriving and going out of Tuoslan each day, and I think it covers in a period of about 8 months over 4,000 individuals. We don't have a lot of those. I think we have very few of those daily recordings of numbers of those in and out, so we think it does have probative value, and it would be important to add that to the case file as it shows the vast numbers of individuals being sent to Tuoslan in 1977, those 8 months. As for the loose pages, it's very difficult to take a position on whether they should be admitted without seeing them. Clearly, issues such as confessions or reports based on confessions, Your Honors have ruled correctly, I believe, that they would not be considered for the truth of their contents. However, there still could be matters of interest in those, such as the names of those who confessed, who may not otherwise be recorded in the paperwork that does survive from Tuoslan. So I think our position on those is that we agree with Your Honor's position to try to get those scanned, and we would ask to submit on whether they should be admitted once we have access to them.
Thank you. The Chamber hands the floor now to the lead co-lawyers for civil parties. The lead co-lawyers do not have any further observation to make, Mr. President. President, the floor is now given to the Defense Counsel for Nuon Chea.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. I think it would be beneficial to the discussion if we briefly indicate the broader context of Walter Hajnowski. I think parties in the chamber should be reminded of the fact that already in 2011 we asked for Walter Hajnowski, together with his co-filmmaker, to be called as witnesses. Hajnowski is the maker of, we believe, at least 2, maybe 3 very interesting and relevant documentaries. Shortly after the Vietnamese invaded democratic Cambodia, he was an East German filmmaker. He was one of East Germany's most important Marxist-Leninist filmmakers. He has produced many other films about Vietnam, East Germany, etc. He is the producer of a film called not Die Ankar, as in die, but Die Ankar, which is the German word for the. And he's also the maker of a film called, in German, Sterben und Auferstehen, in English, Birth and Rebirth, 2 propaganda documentaries made at the request of Vietnam to, we believe, depict decay in a black light as much as possible. We requested Hajnowski, and I would like to refer to our witness request, because we said at the time that he could describe his experience filming these documentaries, describe his contacts with Vietnamese authorities at the time, and of course also we said he could assist in authenticating and ascertaining chain of custody of documents pertaining to S-21. The Chamber might recall that on a few occasions in this trial, the second trial, we have confronted witnesses, more particularly, I believe, Susti, with this orange, with stills from the documentary, where you can see this orange logbook. I believe Susti responded to the questions that he hasn't seen this or doesn't look familiar, but I'm not sure about that. But let me finish painting the broader context first. We again asked for the filmmaker Hajnowski to appear again, not only about S-21 documents that one can see in this film, but also about the chain of custody. More particularly, certain other things that can be seen on the film. The Chamber might recall that I believe it was Judge Lavergne who showed at least one or maybe more witnesses that sign that one could see at the entrance of S-21. And Duik said of that that it was a fake, that it was presumably planted there by the Vietnamese. So our prime interest in Hajnowski was not only, of course, ascertaining whether these documents were somehow still available, but also to ask him how he has made his documentaries, how the input from the Vietnamese authorities was evacuated, etc. Instead, maybe also because of his old age, the Chamber decided not to call Walter Hajnowski as a witness, and instead contacting him directly. This has led to the result that we now have, in fact, the original orange logbook, 2 kilos, I believe, and 200 and something pages, which we believe is indeed unique material, because I don't think even the Tool Sling Museum has such logbooks in its possession. So if the director of the Tool Sling Museum is listening, I'm sure he's quite excited about the prospect of having this orange logbook added to his collection. However, the question subsequently now raised in relation to a Rule 87 issue, should that logbook be admitted into evidence? At this point in time, because it was such a recent request, I don't think we are ready to respond in either way to this request. Team members of me have had a look yesterday at this logbook. I will have my own appointment today at 11:45 in lunch break. So my request would be, Mr. President, to defer the discussion to either Monday or Tuesday, to give the request some more consideration, because we were not able to make up our mind yet. I would also like to discuss the issue with Nguyen Chia. So I think that is our preliminary view at this moment. I don't think I've forgotten anything. There's one other thing that I would like to ask the Chamber. I believe, if I understood the memo correctly, Judge Fens, it was you who telephoned with Professor Hajnowski. And my question is whether he, at any point in time during the conversation, had indicated a willingness to testify in this courtroom, either by coming here or presumably more practical by video link. That is a question that, of course, we still have, and that brings me back to why we originally requested Walter Hajnowski to come and testify. So these are our preliminary views so far, Mr. President.
I can clarify the last question immediately. I didn't raise the subject with him. I tried to keep my role down to interpreter. The reason I got involved was because we didn't get an answer from him first, and it would have been very difficult to find a German interpreter who does retranslations, etc. So I really tried to confine my role to interpreting the original memorandum or request which he had misplaced to him, and keep all the questions within the limits of that. So to answer your question, no, I didn't ask him if he would be willing to do that, so I can't tell you if there is any indication. What he did, and you saw that, he mentioned another person as a potential witness.
President, the floor is given to the Defense Counsel for... Please hold on. The floor is given to the lead co-lawyer for civil party.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor again. I also had a question for Judge Fens and the Chamber, because in reading your decision E443/2 at paragraph 5, we understand that during the conversations, photographs of prisoners were referred to, and that Professor Hejnowski had indicated that he had photographs in his home. The chamber indicated that it would wish that those photographs be sent to the tribunal. And if I understand correctly, the photographs were never received. What is important for us? Since photographs are a means for civil parties to identify some of their close relatives who disappeared at S21, I would like to know whether the chamber did follow up the matter and understand why Professor Hejnowski had not sent the photographs. I thank you.
President, the floor is given to the Defense Counsel for Khieu Samphan.
Thank you, Mr. President. In concrete terms, as regards the submissions we want to make today, we doubt, nevertheless, that if the chamber would expect us to make submissions, because it's already inclined to have these documents tendered into evidence. Now, the remarks I'd like to make today will necessarily be limited, because since we are talking of a 250-page document, as we were able to see yesterday, very briefly, we were not able to cross-check them against other elements on record. We looked at one particular page and we realized that a document that we already have on record, which it contains some information which is different, and this immediately raises the essential question: if we admit this document, how would we assess its probative value? I say so because, as a matter of fact, we can make all sorts of comments on that document, on those documents, but there are only two persons who can possibly authenticate them and verify them, and it's Susti, who testified before this chamber, and Deutsch. Obviously, as regards the issue of chain of custody, we also have Professor Hejnowski. At this stage, my application is that Professor Hejnowski be summoned to appear and to explain how he went about obtaining those documents and keeping them in his custody since the date of his documentary in 1980 up to 2016, without anyone being aware of the existence of these documents in his possession. We've had two investigations, that of the Deutsch case and the case of 002/02, and these documents existed and no one deemed it necessary to go and seek them in advance. So he should be called to explain how he was able to keep them in his custody, since these documents should be in the archives of the country at the time of the documentary. Who are the persons who were in possession of the document in the intervening period? Were any annotations made by those persons after 1980? That is, annotations on those documents. So, in brief, we are talking of legitimate questions regarding those documents, that disappeared since 1980. That is the first point. The second point, obviously, is that we confronted Susti and Deutsch with a number of documents relating to S21 as part of our examination of those persons. We have new documents that no one had seen before, at least not by those witnesses, and I deem it therefore necessary to do a real assessment of the evidence in order that those two witnesses should come to this chamber, consult the documents, and have the parties question them on different passages in those documents that could be useful for the manifestation of the truth. That is my application at this stage, and it appears that, of course, given the age of Professor Hejnowski, we could have him testify by video link, given his age. That would be the best approach. As for Susti and Deutsch, who testified not too long ago, their testimonies don't have to be long, but at least we'll be able to confront them with the originals of those documents so that they can take questions for the parties.
Can I just ask for a clarification? So you ask for Hajnowski and somebody else as a witness, or just, because you just said 2 people? Or did I misunderstand?
Peut-être que
it may well be that there was something that was lost in the interpretation. I'm talking of 2 persons, Susti and Deutsch, who worked at S21, in addition to Professor Hajnowski.
And if I may add one point, Mr. President, of course, it might also potentially substantially affect the testimony of the upcoming OCIJ witness, who is the author of the OCIJ list, who is going to testify next Thursday. I'm sure she hasn't seen such a document before, maybe individual similar pages. But we need to also think about the effects of admittance of that logbook on the testimony of the OCIJ employee who is coming to testify next week in court.
If I could just, my understanding is that the logbook does not contain names, but simply numbers. I don't think it will have any significant effect upon the list of names collected by OCIJ, but of course it's better we have this book in case anyone wants to use it during their testimony. But clearly it was not used by OCIJ in compiling the list, and it does not, as I understand it, contain names.
Une dernière remarque, Monsieur.
One last remark, Mr. President. I thank you for giving me the floor again. It is up to the Chamber to apply Rule 95, because that will enable you to issue an rogatory commission, and you'll be able to authentify the documents as well, which will meet the concerns of our colleague. But you are free to use that rule to specify a number of points as regards those documents.
Okay, as far as I see, we have now a new request to hear Hajnowski and a request to recall Sustin and Deutsch. Can we have comments from the other parties on that?
The Hajnowski request is not new. That
Your Honor, in my preliminary view is these witnesses, it's not necessary. I mean, I think it would have been good to have the book during their examination, but I don't believe the value of bringing the witnesses back would be worth the time and the delay. This is simply one of a great many pieces of evidence that we had from S21. And as I indicated, it doesn't include names, it includes numbers of individuals going in and out each day. So my preliminary remark on that is, in my view, while it's not necessary to bring back witnesses and to call the new witnesses, we submit it. We have an indication through the court's investigation of where the document comes from Hajnowski. I don't know that much would be added by his testimony, but I don't object to it. My only concern is completing the trial.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, let me make one remark, perhaps to help you understand why it is important.
President, now please stop discussing. Please sit down. You are not allowed to speak. You are not allowed to speak. And the floor is given to Antakuse.
Donc, comme je le disais,
As I was saying, perhaps to explain why I believe Deutsch and Sustin would be useful to make comments on the document. Let me give you an example, because it is between Thursday and today that we've been able to look at the document. We have one example. We have an entry on the 25th of October 1977 as document E3/8763. ERN in Khmer 00008083, and we have a similar table. On the document in question, the ERN is 01356100. On the document with E38763 with a similar table, we have a signature by Ha with some documents on the list. We don't have Rom's signature, and apparently there's an additional page in Khmer. So on documents that appear to be similar with the same entries on the same day, we have differences. This is a typical issue, the kind of issue that I would like either Deutsch or Susti to clarify, to enable us to know whether there were two types of documents. There is documents that have different entries and different elements. So these are issues regarding things that may be similar but that are different. Why are they differences? Are these things that were referred to earlier or not? So these are relevant issues. This is just one example to show why we believe even a brief summoning of these witnesses would be useful.
President, thank you. Thank you for parties' submissions and observation. The Chamber will take them into consideration. And the request by Council Victor Kope will also be taken into consideration regarding his request for time to review the document. The Chamber now does not have a clear position on this issue yet, and we will notify parties of its decision in the near future. Now we hear testimony of 2 TCW 971, and before we hear the testimony of the witness, the Chamber notes that the witness is part of an ongoing investigation, and the international investigating judge categorized the witness in Category A, and the investigating judge requested for the witness to be used a pseudonym in order to protect his identity. The Chamber concur with this request, but the Chamber need to take into account the balance between the public discussions of the evidence and the integrity of the ongoing investigation. Therefore, the Chamber instructs parties to stick strictly to this principle in order to keep the confidentiality of the witness. The witness has a duty counsel that stay with him throughout the whole testimony. Is Mr. Mueng Sawan. Good morning, Mr. Witness. Are you ready? Answer: yes, I am. President, in this proceeding in the courtroom, And based on the international co-investigating judge, we will use only pseudonym to address you. And your pseudonym is 2TCW 971. Generally, parties will address you as only witness. Therefore, the Chamber would like to inform you that parties, including the Chamber itself, will not be allowed to address you by your name. Mr. Witness, can you read or write, rather, can you read the statements on the document in front of you? Mr. Moon Sawan, could you please assist with providing document E39593 in Khmer Ion 0097 968029. Mr. Witness, the Chamber would like you to have a look at your identity in document E3/9593 with Khmer Ion 00968029 and Ion in English 00978766 and French 00977910. And please have a look at the orange highlighted parts, whether your names, your surname, your national identity, your place of birth, your occupation, your parents' names, your current address, your wife's name, and the number of children. Are this information correct? Please have a look at them and tell us whether the information are correct or not. And have you already have a look at them and whether the information highlighted are correct or not? Answer, yes, they are all correct. President, thank you. Based on the report by the greffier, that to your best of knowledge, you are not related to the two accused, that is Nuon Chi or Khieu Samphan, or to other parties accepted in this case. Is this report correct? Answer, yes, it is correct. Question, have you already taken an oath based on your religious belief before you come to testify? Answer, yes, I took an oath already. President, thank you. Now we would like to inform you of your rights and obligation as a witness. Your rights. As a witness in the proceedings before the Chamber, you may refuse to respond to any question or to make any comment which may incriminate you. That is your right against self-incrimination. Your obligations. As a witness in the proceeding before the Chamber, you must respond to any questions by the bench or relevant parties, except where your response or comment to those questions may incriminate you, as the Chamber has just informed you of your right as a witness. You must tell the truth that you have known, heard, seen, remembered, experienced, or observed directly about an event or occurrence relevant to the questions that the bench or parties pose to you. Mr. Witness, have you ever provided interviews to the investigators from the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges? And if so, how many times and where they happened? Answer, it happened one time at my home. President, thank you. And before you come to testify here, have you already reviewed those statements that you provided with the interviewers at your home? Answer, yes, I have reviewed it already. President, and can you tell us whether the statements of your interviews that you have reviewed in order to recall your memory, is consistent with what you have provided to the interviewers during the interview at your home? Answer: yes, it is consistent. President, thank you. And in putting question to the witness pursuant to Rule 91 the chamber provide the floor to the Nunchi Defense Counsel to put question to this witness first. And the two defense counsel team have 2 sessions to put questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. Witness. I'm the international co-lawyer for Nguyen Chia, and I would like to ask you some questions this morning. My questions will be mostly about the period after you went to Battambang on the 1st of January 1978. Let me ask you a few questions about the period before. One specific question, in your WRI E3/9593 in the first question and answer, you said that before 1975 you were, quote, coerced to become a soldier of Lon Nol, end of quote. Can you explain to me what you mean with that? Who wanted to coerce you, for instance?
Thank you. At that time, after the coup toppling Samdech Sihanouk, there was no coercion. There was simply a propaganda encouraging people to join the movement, but there was no coercion.
So no coercion from the side of Lon Nol to join their army, correct?
No.
Is it correct that at one point in time you were assigned to be a teacher, and that in the beginning of 1977 you were the deputy chairman of the Commerce Office at Ang Ta Son, which is in Tram Kok district in the southwest zone? Correct?
The Commerce Office was not at Ang Ta Son. It was in fact at Ang Roka. In fact, it was briefly located at Ang Ta Son, but later it was relocated to Ang Roka.
And did you become a deputy chairman at one point in time?
I could not recall the time. I could not recall the time frame.
Can you describe your activities as a deputy chairman of the Commerce Office in the Tram Kok district?
My work at the office, in fact it was not called an office because it was small. It was simply part of the district. It was called the district commerce. My work included the recording down of the numbers of materials brought in and taken out, including clothes. So that was my main task. There was nothing important.
Were you also in charge, for instance, of keeping records of stock or rice, that kind of thing? Is that what your work at the Commerce Office entailed as well?
No, there was no rice. The time when I was there were only salt and clothes.
Just a few questions about other members in Tam Kok district and that you worked with. Can you tell us who was Ta Ti Chai?
At that time, he was the deputy of the district committee.
And is it correct that you were appointed as deputy chairman of the Commerce Office by Ta Kit?
Yes, he was the one who called me to come and help supervise things there.
One last question, or rather two. I think you also mentioned in your WRI Ta Pek Chim. Who was he?
When I was there, Ta Pek Chim had already left. There was only Ta Kit. For the other person, he's already had left. Only Ta Kit remained there.
And my final question about the Southwest Zone before we move to Battambang, Mr. Witness, is Ta Mok. Did you know him personally? Ta Mok, the Southwest Zone leader.
Yes, I knew Ta Mok. Ta Mok had worked there for a long time. He had worked there since the coup era, and I saw his face there. I saw his face there since after the coup.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Witness. Now let me move to the 1st of January 1978. In your WRI you said you left for Battambang by train. My first question is, how do you know so certain that it was in fact on the 1st of January 1978 that you left for Battambang?
I remember it by myself.
So you have no doubt that it was in fact that very particular day, the 1st of January 78, that you and others left for Battambang, correct?
I left on the last day of the previous month, and I arrived in Battambang on the 1st of the new month.
Thank you. Mr. Witness, do you recall that before you left to Battambang, there was a meeting presided over by Ta Mok and Ta Chai at the district office of at Sa Ang Rokar, where Ta Mok and Ta Chai explained to you and others the reasons why you and others had to go to the Northwest Zone?
It was not a major meeting. They only called us to tell us about the information and to prepare ourselves for the trip. It was not a major meeting at all. And it was his habit that he would call us and inform us of what happened.
And although it was a short meeting, do you recall what it was that either Tamok or Tachai told you about the reasons why you would be going to Battambang?
Tachai was not aware of the reasons as well. And it was not Tachai who informed us, but it was Tamok.
Thank you for that clarification. And what was it that Tamok told you, Tachai, and others?
He told us to prepare ourselves to go to Battambang because the situation in Battambang was not good, so that we should prepare ourselves to go there quickly in order to resolve those issues.
And what did he mean when he said the situation in the northwest zone was not good?
I did not understand it as well, but only upon my arrival then I realized of what happened. But before I left, I did not understand it.
And what was it that you realized upon your arrival? Can you explain what it was that you saw or experienced once you had arrived in the northwest zone?
When I arrived, he organized us to go to see what happened at the various cooperatives. First, to go to Don Tiêu for a few days, and I asked what the purpose was. He says that people there did not have enough rice to eat, and that some people were detained there, and that we had to go and see it ourselves.
And what was it that you saw? How were you able to observe that people had not enough to eat or that there was not enough rice? What exactly did you do to observe that?
Actually, the witness hasn't testified to that yet. Counsel said it. He only said that's what Tom Mok told him.
No. I think the witness said that it wasn't clear what Tomok had meant and that it only became clear upon his arrival. That's what he just testified to. So I think the question is appropriate, Mr. President, so I will repeat it. Mr. Witness, what did you observe, for instance in Dun Tiv, that made you understand that people did not have enough food?
When I arrived, there was no detention of anyone. I saw people working in groups. As for food, the food supply was normal. However, in some areas where we went, we were asked about our purpose, and I said that I came because I heard that you did not have enough rice to eat, and that their freedom was deprived since they were detained. But in fact, no one was detained, and I did not see any detention place.
Well, let's talk about food, the food issue first. In various places in your WRI, you talk about the food situation. In question and answer 4, you said, quote unquote, they had me resolve the problem of foodstuffs. In question 23, you answered the people did not have food to eat. And in question and answer 63, you said the following, and let me quote you again. When we arrived in the Northwest Zone, we saw rice and sugar abandoned in storage and clothes left tattered and moldy. End of quote. Is that something that you recall saying, Mr. Witness?
Your Honor, it's just the practice has been that with witnesses are first asked what they recall before their answers are read back and fed back to them. So I'd ask counsel, from this point on, I don't care at this point, to adopt that practice.
I started with an open question first, Mr. President, so I think I should be allowed to read back to what he said. Mr. Witness, is that what you told the investigators? That you saw rice and sugar abandoned in storage and clothes left tattered and moldy, and that you had to resolve the problem of food?
Yes, that's what I saw.
Let's start with those storage those storage facilities that you spoke about. What exactly did you see? You said we saw rice and sugar abandoned in storage. For instance, how did you observe that this rice and sugar was abandoned in storage?
We saw rice was being stored in a rice warehouse.
But storage of rice in itself is, I imagine, not atypical or unusual. Why did you connect food shortage to rice storage? What's the relation between the two at the time in your observation?
It was my understanding was that if rice was stored for a long time, the quality would be bad. And in some areas, the workers in various groups did not have sufficient food to eat. As for the rice in storage, some of them had been stored for a long time, so the quality became bad. As for sugar was stored in a big jar, in big jars, and the quality remained good.
But did you, when you observed that, have reason to conclude that the storage of rice was done on purpose and that people were not fed on purpose?
I did not understand why they left it there or why it was not given to the people. But from what I saw, I thought that the rice had been stored there for a long time, so the quality became bad. And as I said, in some areas the people did not have sufficient food to eat. Or it's maybe because the rice was bad, that's why it was not distributed to the people. I did not know.
Let me read to you something another Southwest Zone cadre told investigators of the international co-investigating judge. I will read it to you and then I will ask your reaction. Mr. President, I'll be referring to E3/10750. It's a testimony of a person, I presume I can't mention either. So I won't mention his name. What I can say is that he, in question and answer 7, told the investigators that he had been working as a sector messenger in Takeo province. Mr. Witness, this is what he said to investigators, question and answer 67. He's talking about Northwest Zone cadres. When they, and people in the Northwest Zone, quote, when they received supplies such as clothes and rice from the warehouse, they did not distribute them to the people. They kept them until they were old and perished. The former cadres hid the rice and gave the people gruel to eat instead. The Northwest Zone was full of rice. There was no reason why the people had to eat gruel. End of quote. Mr. Witness, is this something that you and others came to conclude as well?
When I saw those rice, which was bad. And of course, we all knew that in Battambang there should be abundance of rice, and why in some areas workers did not have sufficient food to eat. I did not understand of their idea or thinking, and why they did not distribute the rice to the people.
What was it that you and others subsequently had to do to fix the situation, to solve the problem of food?
As for the food in storage, I called the people nearby or people in the cooperative to come to take those rice to eat. Although some of the rice was bad, but I had to allow them to use all the rice in the storage. So that we had to distribute all the rice in the storage, although some rice was bad.
Where exactly did you do that, Mr. Witness? Where was it that you took out that rice and gave it to the starving people?
It was at the Tmokul, because I saw the rice in storage in Tmokul, and I called the neighboring people as well as those from the mobile units to come and get the rice. So I distributed all the rice in the storage.
And do you recall the reaction of the people that received this rice?
When I gave them the rice, they did not have any reaction, but they were happy that I did it. And I did not know how they felt through those people previously who didn't give them the rice. But when I arrived, I called them to go and get the rice, and they could never go there previously. So they could get as much rice as they could when I arranged that.
Mr. Witness, in your WRI question and answer 27, you said, and I quote you, when we arrived there in Duntip district, we had to rearrange to help the starving people and help the detainees. Then the question is asked, you said there were detainees, where were they detained? And then you answer, there was no detention site, but people were placed in each commune. The rearranging of the rice, was it also meant for the rearranging for the rice, was it also meant for the people who were being re-educated or who were being placed in the communes?
I do not understand your question.
It's just a follow-up question of, in respect of what you said. You said in your WRI we had to rearrange to help the starving people and to help the detainees. You said there was no detention site, but people were placed in each commune. Those people were already tempered and made to do hard work without adequate food. And then you say they were not shackled. My question is, did you also give food to people who apparently had been tempered or re-educated?
When I arrived, I observed that people ate communally. It means that the food was cooked in big pot, and they did not really have much to eat, or I could say that the food ration was limited. So for that, I make a new arrangement to ensure that people had enough food and rice to eat. And I did not allow rice to be storage there, but to store as the commune, so that they could have enough rice to eat. People were not detained anywhere, but people were put into units, that is a working group or working unit, big or small, in the mobile units. And after we gave rice to their chiefs so that people could have enough food to eat, I then allowed them to return to their respective villages.
Mr. President, I'm going to the next subject, working conditions. Is this a time to break, or do you want me to continue?
It is now appropriate time for a short break. The time will take a break now and resume at 10:30. And witness will meet at 10:30. The court is now in recess.